Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year. I'm starting this year with a new blog post, a new video, and as usual, I'm sharing the new release, the new version of the course environment that I'm planning to use in the new intakes that I start this year. Without any further ado, I'm gonna share the updates on the course environment based on the previous one, based on the one I created for last year. Everything is in the project repo. So the name of the project is OSBDET, from Open Source Big Data Educational Toolkit. And if you access the repo, you will have the updates that I added to the project. So for those of you who are new, this is just a set of scripts that are very handy to create virtual machines with the big data frameworks that I teach in my courses. Definitely, you can use it if you want to install it in your computer, but my recommendation is that you use the images that I'm going to share in a moment. I will drive you through the steps to make them work. But long story short, yeah, not very many changes at the moment. So basically, I updated the modules just to consider the latest versions compatible with the labs that I use in my classes. And something that I brought back to life is the recipe thing. This is something I introduced a couple of years back with the intention of changing the deployments that I was sharing with my students in an easy way. So some of them needed to install some additional things, or sometimes I needed to remove some of the components just to make some space for some other files. In this edition, I created a couple of recipes. So this one is one of the recipes I'm very proud of because I believe it's going to be very handy for, at least for me, and probably for those advanced students who want to make the most of the course environment. This recipe is all about installing a Visual Studio, installing Visual Studio Code, and being able to create a remote panel in the sense that you can have a local Visual Studio Code instance connecting to the course environment, running on the same machine or running on a different machine. So as I said, very handy just to use the course environment with some additional integrated development environment, not only the Jupyter notebooks that we use in our classes. And the other one is the web application that I created for this new edition, where basically you can control the different frameworks in a very easy manner compared to the way this was done before. That's pretty much it. So recommended to make things work, and 4 gigabytes of RAM. And so obviously this means you cannot use all the frameworks at once, so that's not going to work. And you cannot deal with very big data sets. So the virtual environment, this course environment, is designed to practice. So just to use those big data frameworks with a small data set. So you're having the experience of using these frameworks in a very limited environment, but representative of what you're going to see out there. And that's pretty much it. So you should deploy the image that I'm going to share in a moment in a machine with at least 50 gigs of free space in the hard disk. Otherwise, you might be running out of space very soon. And so nowadays, I would say 50 gigs is not a big deal. So you should be able to get this amount of space in your hard disk. If not, yeah, make some room before you deploy it. And for those of you who are technical, here are the list of TCP ports used in order to access the different user interfaces provided by the frameworks themselves. So during the lab, sometimes we're just looking at the contents of HDFS through the browser, and so definitely this port needs to be open and available. And when we are working with data ingesting, we are relying on NiFi. NiFi is a web, actually it's a data ingestion tool with a web UI. It's very handy because you can define the data flows visually, which is very convenient when you're learning these technologies. And again, it has this port available and the one you have to use to connect your browser to the NiFi's UI. Cool. So if you scroll up and go straight into the releases section within the repo, you will see that there is a new release. This is the OSBDET 2024 release 1. There you go. So you have a couple of images. I've created a couple of virtual machines, just in case you don't want to install it yourself. And there are two versions. Those of you using a Windows machine or using an Apple computer relying on an Intel processor. So that's usually all Apple computers. The newest one are using the own Apple microprocessor. So if you're using Windows or an old Apple machine, this is the one you should use. It's relying on VirtualBox. So that means you need to install VirtualBox in first place. Then you download the image. And once you have the image locally available, then you can start using it right away. So this has been tested in VirtualBox 7.0.12, running on Windows 11 and Mac OS Monterey. And yeah, we will see this in action in a moment. And the other image is relying on UTM. So the virtualization software we are going to use is UTM, which is based on QEMU. And you have an Apple computer relying on the modern Apple processors, this Apple M1, M2, or M3. This is the one you have to use. Tested on macOS Monterey and actually the newest one, I would say. So that's something I need to update. Yeah, this is the laptop I've used. And it's relying on Sonoma 14.2.1. And this is the one we're going to see in action. As you can see, the size of the images are not that big, keeping in mind everything that is inside, right? So we're talking about all these frameworks in here. And so pretty much the same frameworks that we had in the previous version, but the versions that I'm using are completely new. Most of them, actually all of them. Jupyter Lab for 0.10. This is going to be a big change and very positive because I see it much handier than the previous version. NiFi 1.24. So NiFi 2 is available, but I was not very into trying something very new with a lot of internal changes. So probably in the next version, I will give NiFi 2 a try. Hadoop 336, the latest version of Hadoop. I believe that was released 2-3 months back or something like that. Apache Spark 3.5, the latest one. Kafka 361, the latest one. The Track Fleet Simulator. MariaDB 10.11.4. Superset 3.02. And we're coming from 2.0.1, so that's a big update. MongoDB 7.0.4. We're coming from MongoDB 4.4, so another big update. Min.io, December 23. Airflow 2.8.0 and Grafana 10.2.3, the latest and greatest version of Grafana. In this edition, we are going to have an HTTP endpoint, meaning that this is something you can actually get into by using any web browser. And pointing out to this URL, localhost con 2024, this is going to take you straight into the web application that I've added. In this edition, in the previous one, we had a static website. In this one, we have actual web application, full stack application, where in addition to get info of the different frameworks available in the course environment, you're going to be able to interact with the different frameworks in a way that you can start an app and shut them down by clicking a button. And so this is going to prevent students from typing the weird commands that we had to type every single time we were starting a new lab. So I hope this is handy. I'm not 100% sure that is perfectly working. There will be some minor um, changes that I need to introduce. But again, as I brought this recipe thing back to life, if I need to change something, I can create a recipe and then modify what I need to modify. So I feel confident that this new web application is going to be yeah, very helpful. Cool. So now I'm not going to download these machines because this is going to take a while. So I already have them locally. But what I'm going to show you is how to come up with this number here. So it's a good practice to be sure that the file you downloaded from our website is actually the file you should be downloading and avoiding any security breach or security issue. So this is the number that you can get by typing a command that I'm going to show you in a moment. So you need to download the file, run the command, get the number by running the command I'm going to share in a moment, and compare the number you get with the number you have here in this repo. If you get the same number, nice. So you're using the file that I created. You got something else, that means someone, for some reason, changed that file, and yeah, you're running something that I didn't create. And this could bring some security issues. So let's start by working on this laptop. This is an Apple M1 Mac computer. This is a MacBook Air with 16 gigs, and it's almost 3 years old, and I would say very powerful still. So once you download the file, you should have something like this. So the moment I have to file, this is the file from the previous version. This is the file for this version. Once you have this file already downloaded, you need to open a terminal window. And actually, let me open it from scratch. So you just type terminal in the Spotlight search. And you should have something like this. Let's see. There we go. So it's open over there. Second. Let me bring it here. Then these are the two files that I have on the desktop. Then the command you have to use, if you're using Mac, and actually with this image, you have to use Mac. So this command is going to be available, or should be available. Sum -a 256, and then the name of the file. This is OSBDET 24 release 1. You leave it running there for a while, and eventually you will get the number we are looking for. Okay, so I can tell you that this file is the right file because it's the file I created. So nobody was able to access my computer, hopefully, and replace it. So once you have the file downloaded and confirmed, and you confirm that the file is the right file, you can open UTM. Most likely, UTM is going to be empty, or if you are coming from a previous intake, you will have the previous version. You will have something like this. And the next thing we are going to do, there we go. So we have the number. Now let's open both windows at the same time so we can very easily compare the numbers. So actually, yeah. So you can see 18C, 90D, yeah, pretty much the same number and characters at the beginning, same numbers and character at the end. So definitely this is the file I created. We are done. We can close it. The next thing we are going to do here is, okay, we are going to double click this link. This is going to extract, as you can see here. This is going to stack the content of the zip file. And this is going to be the virtual machine and the one we are gonna use. Once you unzip the virtual machine, you need to put it in a folder that you won't change. And that's really important because if you put this into a folder that is going to change at some point, you change the name or you change the location or whatever you do, then the virtual machine will stop working. Okay, so my suggestion is that you put it on the desktop and zip it. You might want to leave it there. So actually I'm gonna leave it here. And you will drag and drop it into UTM. And there we go. So the virtual machine is going to be ready. You can remove this file if you are short of space, or you can leave it there because, as I usually say in my classes, this virtual machine is there just to break it. And why break it? Because you're going to practice. You're going to run the examples that I shared. You will come up with your own examples. And it's very likely that you didn't choose the right data set or you didn't choose the right implementation and you run out of space or you make the virtual machine inconsistent. And then if this happens, the only thing you have to do is you destroy the virtual machine and you start from scratch. Definitely that can be fixed, but it takes longer than just destroying and starting from scratch. And so that's why I suggest to keep this zip file locally just to be able to recreate the virtual machine very quickly. If you don't have extra space, you can remove it. And if for some reason you need to recreate the virtual machine, you can download it again from the repo, and that's it. Cool. So we have the course environment available here. We just deploy it into UTM, and you shouldn't do anything here unless you want to give more resources to the virtual machine. So actually, in my case, as I have 16 gigs of RAM, and I could increase the amount of memory. So rather than having 4 megabytes of RAM, I could put here 8 megabytes. Sorry, 4 gigabytes of RAM. I could configure 8 gigs for this virtual machine, and this will help me have bigger data sets. And so you can increase the number of cores as well. The more cores you bring to the virtual machine, the more software you can run at the same time, right? So this is basically the way you're going to size a system. But again, this is even though you give a lot of memory, even though you give a lot of CPU, this is not a big data infrastructure. So when we are talking about big data, we are talking about many different machines working at the same time for a single or multiple purpose, but they are working all at once, right? Cool. So ideally, you don't have to change anything. You just start the virtual machine. Ideally, you will not get any error, and you should have the operating system running. And again, this is an update that I've introduced. Previous version of the course environment was relying on Debian 11, so this has been updated to Debian 12. Once you get this message, you can minimize the window. You can minimize this window as well. And you can go back to the browser. So in this new release, and actually in the previous release, you didn't have to use the console. You had to use the command line. That's something that I've removed in this edition, as you will see in a moment. So if you access localhost 2024, you will get to the course environment homepage. It's a little different to the one that we had in the previous version. And so as you are realizing, I'm not a web designer, so I tried my best, but yeah, it's from the design point of view is horrible, but it is what it is. So in the past, when you wanted to stop the virtual machine, you had to open a Jupyter, open the Jupyter notebook, open a terminal, and then type a command to shut it down. So that's no longer needed. And actually, let's see it in action before we move on. This is it. So let's make this smaller. So if I click this button, you will see that the course environment will shut down. There you go. No confirmation message, no anything else. So very straightforward, very direct, and definitely something to improve in the future. So getting a message, a confirmation message would be desirable, right? But step by the step. So this is just what the new version is offering, or the first version of the web app is offering, and it will improve over time. So let's start it up one more time. Ready to be used. We can minimize this one as well. And we are back to the home page. So as usual, there are some frameworks that are already available, and you don't have to start an app, and those are Jupyter and Spark. But as you can see, the rest of the frameworks are not disabled, are stopped. So all of them are enabled and can be used right away, but they are stopped. Then in every single framework, you will see this switch that will allow you to stop and start the different frameworks. These two are not, cannot be changed, so are not ready to be changed. Basically, you cannot stop them. In addition to this switch, you have these two icons. This icon gives you more info about this framework. This is similar to what we had in the previous version. So I actually copied and pasted the same content. And so you have links to access the UI of that framework. And you can access the project website just in case you want to go deeper on some of the frameworks. You can go back home and you can click this other icon. So every single framework having a UI will have one or more UI icons. And then you can click it and you will get to the UI. And so Apache Spark is enabled by default. Actually, nothing is running in the background. So yeah, so you just basically use it through Jupyter. And when you run an Spark job, you have this UI available. So that means if you click this icon at the moment, yeah, you will get an error because you didn't run any Spark application. That's expected. And then we have the rest of the framework. So the information icon will give you all the info of the framework, how to start the framework app manually. And this is the way we did it in the past, right? But this is no longer needed. So if you click this switch over here, so it will start up. Having this in green doesn't mean that is available. So you need to wait some seconds. And if your machine is not that fast, maybe you need to wait some minutes to have the framework available. So after some seconds, if you click the icon, you will get straight into the UI. So this first UI is the HDFS UI. The second one is the Yarn UI. So actually you can access both of them. And once you're done, you can switch it off. You can shut it down. It will take a while up until it is fully stopped. And once it is fully stopped, you can start using some others. So actually you try to access the UI, yeah, you will see that it's not working out, right? Pretty much with NiFi, you try to access NiFi, it's not available. There you go. So you need to switch it on. Even though it looks like it's up and running, yeah, you will see that it's not actually up and running. So maybe in the future, I'm able to introduce something else that lets you know when the framework is actually available, right? But you need to wait some seconds and eventually it will be ready, as you see here. That's pretty much it. So yeah, you can explore the different ones. So Grafana, for instance, this framework, this tool starts very, very quickly. So there you go, you have it there. And pretty much any other frameworks here with an web UI. So Airflow starts very quickly as well. There you go. So you stop it, it stops very quickly as well. There you go, no longer available. And all in all, I believe this is a very convenient web application to deal with the class environment and be 100% focused on the labs and the exercise that we are gonna work on. So in the past, we had to spend like 5 minutes opening Jupyter, opening a terminal window, and then starting the different frameworks app, and then doing the stuff, and then shutting things down. That's going to be shortened a little bit. And so yeah, maybe you can save 1-2 minutes, but if you save 1-2 minutes in every class, then you save a lot of time during the whole semester, right? That's the idea. Okay, so this is it for this image, the UTM image. So we are gonna stop it. I'm gonna remove this tab over here. Let's confirm that is stopped. There you go. And if you need to remove the course environment, yeah, it is as easy as right-clicking the item, removing it. And this is going to remove the item here, but it's not going to remove the data, right? So it is no longer in this list, but it is still here. So then you need to remove it from the computer and remove it from the bin. There we go. Now it's time to do the same with the other machine. And so I'm gonna stop sharing this screen. I'm gonna share this one. I need to configure. This is the first time I'm using the computer with Zoom. So that means I need to configure it to share the screen. Sorry about that. Let's see what happens now. There you go. Yeah, here it is. I'm gonna minimize this. I'm gonna let's change this as well. Okay, already configured. Nice. I'm gonna minimize the different browsers that I have. And yeah, pretty much the same. This is the file that I already downloaded. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to come up with the same number just to confirm that we are working with the right one. Let me minimize this as well. I already run the command, so I'm not going to do it again. So this is the file we are going to use in a moment. The same command as we used before. If you're using Windows, I'm not 100% sure, but there should be an equivalent command to do the same. And if not, I'm pretty sure there are some open source or freeware out there just to do it. So this is the number that you get. Let's double check that this is the number. We should see. Let's go to releases. Yeah, so there you go. AMD 64, this is it. 30F24, 30F24, yeah, that's the same thing. And it ends with BC3F8C, which is the same. There we go. Okay, so yep, this was expected again. So the file that I'm using is the file I created. So it would be really weird if I had something different. Cool. So once you have it downloaded, let me close this one. You don't need to unzip anything because actually it's one single file and it contains everything in a specific format that needs to be imported into VirtualBox. So it's a little bit different to the approach we saw with UTM. So the next thing we have to do is opening VirtualBox, and I believe you can drag it and drop it. Let's give it a try. No, you cannot do it. So in that case, you have just to import it. Please choose a file to, okay. So here is where you need to select the file that we already downloaded, which is the second one. We need to open it up. Next, we can introduce some changes here. So as I mentioned before, you could decide to bring more virtual cores or increase the memory or whatever you want to do. My suggestion is that you don't touch it if you don't know what you are doing. So you're an advanced user, maybe you can play around with it. And we are done, finished. That's going to import the plugins, and depending on how fast your computer is, you might have it ready in a matter of seconds. So maybe you need to wait some minutes. This is a powerful machine, a little bit old, so probably will take 1 minute. So in the meantime, just to let you know the machine that I'm running this virtual machine on, this is MacBook Pro from 2016. So that means it's 8 years old, but it's a powerful processor with 16 gigs of memory. And yeah, this is the latest version available for this machine. So unfortunately, this is no longer version targeted by the newest Mac OS release. So Sonoma is not available here. So I need to rely on Monterey, which is the 2 versions back, actually. Yeah, so Sonoma is 14, this is 12. But again, very stable and very powerful. So there we go. So in some seconds, it's going to be available, and we are going to do a very simple test. We are going to start it up. We are going to access the web application. You're going to see something interesting. So as you can see, this Mac is configured with dark mode. And for some reason, the web application is going to change some of the colors. And I didn't expect that. And actually, the code that I wrote doesn't take this into consideration. I'm relying on Next.js as the framework for the web application. And so there should be something in the framework taking the mode into consideration. And this is just changing some of the CSS styles when you are just using dark mode versus the normal mode, let's say. There we go. So if everything goes well, you should have the item here. And as usual, this is what I suggest to do. So as we are not going to work with the console, it's highly suggested to use the headless start to prevent from closing the virtual machine abruptly by mistake. So here you can see that the booting process is exactly the same as the other one. We see the blue screen, and after a while you will see the login or the welcome message. There you go. So it's very small, but you can, if you pay attention, if you look into the output, you will see that it's exactly the same as we had. So once this is in this state, you can go back to the browser, and you can type localhost 2024. And there you go. You get access to the web application. And as I said, this is a little bit weird. And unfortunately, I realized this very late. And so I will be able to fix it with a recipe or something like that. But yeah, it is what it is. So it's a little bit weird because it's hard to read all these text. No, not the text, but probably the headers. And so, yeah, pretty much the same when you are accessing the different frameworks. Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's even though you see this in a weird way, Yeah, it's 100% functional. So you click the UI, you will get access to Jupyter. There you go. And something that I've realized as well is that you can just use Jupyter Lab by typing lab here. And actually, that's another update that I would like to bring in the future. Just replace this link to take you straight into the Jupyter Lab, what I believe is handier. But yeah, again, step by step. And so let's do another test. Let's start superset. Let's see if we are able to access superset. This is a less powerful computer, so that means what I did before, it will take a little bit more here in this machine. There you go, superset over here. We can stop it. We can do the same with min.io. There you go, min.io is over there. So as you can see, all of them have these login screens. So all the credentials are actually provided here. There you go. OSBDET is usually the username you have to provide, and OSBDET123 is the password. So I would say all the credentials inside the virtual machine is like this. And once you're done, you don't need to do anything on VirtualBox. So basically, you can do exactly the same as we did before. Let me show it over here. Once you click it, you see that the machine starts the shutdown process and it is finally powered off. Okay, and yeah, this is pretty much it. So I hope this short video, maybe not a short video, is handy just to see how everything works and you can make it work yourself. So as you can see, it's a piece of cake. If you rely on the images, if you want to build OSBDET in your own computer, or you want to create your own virtual machine, so that's a different story. So it shouldn't be a big deal, but definitely it's going to take a little bit more than just download the image and make it work. One last thing. So it's very likely that I create some additional videos in the future where I show how to make these recipes work. And in particular, the one to create the Visual Studio Code remote tunnels, which are very, very convenient if you want to use the course environment for development purposes. So imagine that you want to play around with Node.js, which is something available in the course environment. You can use it right away. You don't have to install that in your machine, and you will be able to use the course environment, do whatever you want, break it, restore it from scratch if you need it, and once you are comfortable with it, you can deploy it to a production machine. So think of this course environment as a playground, development environment, or something that you can use to develop things or prove concepts very quickly without having to spend time on developing infrastructure locally or in the cloud. That's everything for now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.